Alright guys, settle down. Alright, let's go. Yep, got a lot to get through today. What's this? Thank you, Melissa. It's a wall. And what do walls do? It's not a trick question. They keep people out. Yes, thank you, Angus. Sometimes walls are more designed to keep people in, like for example prison walls, but this particular wall is a defensive city wall, so it was designed to keep people out. And does Sydney have one of these? No. Melbourne? No. Typically modern cities don't have defensive walls, but they were very popular in the ancient and up to the medieval period. And in fact, one definition of the end of the medieval period was when cities stopped relying so much on defensive walls. And historians even will cite a specific historical event after which it was said that city walls don't really work anymore. And by the end of this lesson, you're going to know who figured out how to defeat city walls, how they did it, and what that wall was. So let's start with who. The who is the Ottoman Empire. As you can see in this slide here, they inhabited an area of Western Anatolia, which is modern day Turkey. And so you have the Middle East, Europe, and North Africa. And they started in 1299 AD. And the founder was a guy called Orhan I. But to call the Ottoman Empire an empire in 1299 AD is a little generous, because as you can see here, the Ottoman Empire in 1299 AD was hardly an empire. It was more of a few villages, essentially. And although Orhan between 1300 and 1350 would make some territorial gains in Anatolia to the east, what was really holding him back from becoming a great empire was what he really wanted was some of this region here, the European Balkans. That's what he needed to become a legitimate regional power. And what was standing in his way was essentially a big wall. It was called the Gallipoli Peninsula, and it's just here. You can see. And the Gallipoli Peninsula was controlled by the Byzantine Empire, which had their capital of Constantinople just here. And Constantinople was kind of like the New York City of the ancient world. It was very big and very rich and luxurious, and they kind of looked down, you could say, like figuratively and literally, on the Ottomans, and thought they were a bit of a joke. But so Orhan and his boys, one day sitting around just wondering how they're going to become a great power, and they got kind of lucky, because on the 2nd of March of 1354, there was this huge earthquake and completely destroyed the Gallipoli fortress and devastated the surrounding region, and everyone had to evacuate the region of Thrace. And Orhan could just send his troops through under the general Suleiman Pasha and just take the whole area without any resistance. And this really upset the Byzantines, because and in fact the Byzantines even offered the Ottomans a lot of money to vacate the peninsula, but Orhan declined, and he said his reasons were, this area is a gift from our God, Allah. They were Muslims, Islamic, and we can't just return a gift that our God, Allah, gave us. And this was a really important gift from Allah, because as you can see here, this is how much territory the Ottomans had just after the fall of Gallipoli. And here's what they look like 100 years later, less than 100 years later. It's quite impressive how much territory they were able to gain in this period. And if you're the city of Constantinople in 1451, you're not laughing at the Ottomans anymore. You're actually really scared, because they're over here on the west in the Balkans, and they've got you surrounded on the east in Anatolia. So yeah, you're freaking out. Although, Constantinople was a very large city, and it had the largest walls of antiquity, which were called the Theodosian walls. So you're still feeling a little bit secure behind your huge walls, but it's not an ideal situation. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at how the Ottomans actually conquered the city of Constantinople. And it was done by a guy called Mehmet II, who was their new emperor or sultan, and he threw everything he had at them. And in your source sheet, on your source sheet that I've put out for you before the class started, there's an artistic representation of the conquest of Constantinople. So what you want to do is identify the methods that were used by the Ottomans and write them down. So for example, if there was, in the picture, if there was a soldier punching the wall, you would write, some soldiers punched the wall of Constantinople. So all of your answers will start with some soldiers, and that will end with the walls of Constantinople. But fill it in with all the methods you can see. I'll give you 1 minute. There's 2 N's in canon. Yeah. Yeah. You guys all right? Know what we're doing? All right. Yeah, it's okay if you don't know what it's called. Just call it a machine. We'll go over it as a class, as a class. Yeah, it's fine. All right, guys, is everyone done? Does anyone need a bit more time? Okay. All right. Ed, hit me with a method. Say the full sentence. Yeah, cannons, absolutely. And in fact, it doesn't say it in the, it doesn't show it, but they actually had this massive super cannon called Basilic that was over 8 meters long and could fire from over 1 kilometer away. And it was just it really devastated the city. So yeah, cannons absolutely. Melissa, yep, arrows. You can't really see it in the printout very well, but they were lit on fire, so flaming arrows. Yeah, and Timmy. Yeah. Okay, so it's called a catapult. It's catapult. And that was just a big slingshot that they threw things, that they hurled things at the wall or over the wall with. Alright, really good job, guys. And now what we're going to do is we're going to read those two sources as a class. Yep. So can I get Adriana to start us off? Read until the bracketed ellipsis. Yep. Okay, and Dylan, second half of the first source. All right, and John, first two sentences of the second source. And Simon, second two sentences of the second source. All right, good reading, guys. So yeah, this is kind of a difficult thing, right? Because on the one hand, Mehmet, the Sultan, he was very cruel. He allowed all these atrocities to be committed by his soldiers once they broke through the wall. But then he was really tolerant and merciful to the Christians that evaded capture for the 3 days of the sacking. So, and this is quite common in history to have this dilemma where you have, you know, a great like peaceful liberal society that was kind of built on a lot of atrocities, and you really couldn't get to the peaceful society without having these atrocities at the start, unfortunately. And Australia is even an example of that. You know, we have this great peaceful multicultural society, but it's based on the dispossession and violence towards the indigenous population. We couldn't have Australia without that. So what do? You know, so there are really three ways that you can kind of view this event, right? You can condemn the atrocities. You can condemn the Ottomans for this act, or you can defend what they did, because afterwards it led to this really peaceful society. Or thirdly, you could just accept, which means you don't condemn or defend it. You just sort of say that's the kind of thing that happened back then. You know, times have changed. Back then that was kind of acceptable, but it isn't anymore. So what do you guys think? Just quickly, like, how about let's get a show of hands, all right? Maybe, so defend. Okay, so 7. Condemn. Show of hands. 8. And accept. 5. Okay, so there's more condemning going on than defending. So you guys clearly don't approve of what happened. But one more thing. All right, remember when I said you'll be able to say who conquered the city wall? Who was that? The Ottomans. What was the wall? The walls of Constantinople. Yeah. And how did they do it? Cannons, big super cannons. Yep. Awesome. Thanks, guys.